So Mo has told us before he's never been in love, right? And he said a couple of different times now over the course of the last couple of weeks that he doesn't understand the value of marriage when it comes to a man. And we haven't really dived in on that because initially it sounds offensive.
That's why I don't say it much.
Right. So what does it mean?
Well, it really all started, I don't remember exactly when this was, but there was a time when rapper T.I. said something to the extent of marriage is really not for men, it's for women. And then it became like this really debatable thing. And at the time that happened, I happened to be home in Colorado, and I was with a group of men. And these are all like older men who are married, a couple are divorced, but they're all like older than me and they've had life experiences as men. And so when this debate was happening, where it was kind of the first time I think I've heard older married men vent in a space where there was no women and it was like no holds barred. They was just letting it fly.
Unfiltered.
And so I was there as the younger guy who's never been married, don't know, just kind of listening. And at first he kind of started off with like a lot of the married guys kind of basically speaking to marriage as if it's something that they did because they felt like they had to. Not necessarily because they wanted to. Like, you know, my lady wanted it, so I got married. And then they kind of started venting about how, like, to be honest with you, I wish I would have traveled more. I wish I would have done the things that I see you doing, Mo. Like, I try to live through you. Like, I can't go to Colombia. I can't go to Brazil. My lady's not letting that go down. And it was guys who were speaking to, like, kind of almost feeling as if they like gave up on their dreams a little bit to support being a husband and a father. And there was like, they were basically speaking to, like I always say, you see happy wife, happy life shirts, but you don't see happy spouse, happy house shirts. Like, you know, when we have debates on things, I let her win. It's not worth the fight. Like, do you want to be right or do you want to make love? Like, and then there was other guys who was like, make love. I don't make love. I ain't make love since I've been married, right? These guys are speaking of how they don't get any in their marriages. And it just kind of kept going and going. And then you heard the guys who have been divorced say, I'm not going to lie. I wish I would have taken a different route. The divorce tore me up. I lost this. I lost that. And I kind of, at the end of it all, like after sitting there listening to it, jokingly said, I'm starting to feel like there's no value in getting married as a man. Like listening to y'all, thinking that they were going to be like, no, you know, that's not it, youngin'. But they all kind of looked at me like, well, yeah. And
So if Abby was telling this story about a group of women, what's the advantage for a woman to get married where it's different than a guy?
I feel like you'd have to ask a woman that because I did, like, so when I heard this information, I did go to women. Like, I was curious as to the women who have been married or want to be married because something that the older guy said to me, he said when he got married in his time, it was different. It was like, he feels like that was when, you know, it was where a man would provide and the woman would almost be like, you can have me if you marry me type of thing. Whereas he's like, nowadays, that's not a thing anymore. That's long gone. Like, you don't necessarily have to get married for that. In fact, sometimes you get married and you don't get that. But now he feels like people get married more so just because of the look of marriage, more so than when you got married for the traditional reasons. And so then when I started to ask women like, well, that's interesting. How do you feel about this? I really didn't get a lot of great answers as to what women feel like men do get from getting married nowadays. It was just kind of more like, well, what do we get? And I'm like, well, some men really don't want to be married. So if that's the case, as a man, if you don't really see the value in it and you're asking a woman like, what would the value be? And your answer is just kind of like, well, what do we get? To me, I'm like, that's not a good answer. And then I heard some women say like cook and clean, but I don't really believe in gender roles. I don't understand why that would be I cook and clean too. Like I get busy. I'm not these nasty men that women talk about. I clean very well. So I don't, like we're going to both do that. So it just kind of got down to like, well, what really is truly the value of taking this risk as a man? And especially if you have something to lose and you're afraid of it not going well. And I was kind of lost at the answers I was getting.
Who wants in on this? 1-855-BERT Show.
I think for a lot of the reasons that you're expressing, like what is the value in it for men, women these days could say the exact same thing. And I can say that because I've said the exact same thing. Because I grew up in a really Southern conservative community where it was very much kind of, nobody would ever say this out loud, but I think it was really expected for young women, like, okay, you go to college, you'll work for a few years, you're going to get married to a breadwinner, and then you're going to end up having children. And so because that's not really the life that I want to live, I started asking the same questions where okay, well then what is the value of a long-term committed relationship if I'm going to be expected to give up my dreams and basically just, I've had people that I've dated in the past be like, well, you'll stay home. Like, you'll be the mom to my kids. And I'm like, that's not what I want. And so I think on both sides, both people, both men and women, if this is a heterosexual relationship, you have to ask yourself, what is the value in a long-term committed relationship for me? And why would I value freedom and choices over a long-term committed relationship? You have to decide for yourself, do I see the benefits of investing in something long-term more, or do I really value my freedom more? And that's a personal decision you have to make.
For sure. I agree with you. I just don't. So if a woman feels like that, I would completely understand her feeling like, I don't want to get married because I don't see the value. So I would agree with you in that instance. I guess the only true value I think most men would say is the financial value of being a provider and all of the things that you're going to take care of in a marriage that you might not do in a regular relationship. But other than that, I agree with you.
For me, there really is no inherent value in getting married. It's great for taxes, if financial reasons, if you want that. Back in the day, you're right, the man was the provider and the woman did the household chores and the jobs, and that's a workload as well, and it allowed the man to go out and be successful. Nowadays, that dichotomy doesn't work, but here's the thing. I think I got married because I loved my partner, and I wanted that, so I wanted to solidify that, and I wanted sort of to tell the world we're going to go through this together. I think you can do that and have a great life without getting married and have a long-term commitment, but it's the type of people that are getting married, right? If my husband was like, I want to go on a solo trip, I want to go on a trip with my friends, I want to go travel in Brazil, I'd be like, all right, great. I mean, we got to figure out the kids thing.
Most wouldn't.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying is I think when some people go into marriages, they now act like we're in this together, and you are, but it becomes a permission thing. I need to get your permission. I need to get your permission. My wife won't let me do that. My husband says I can't spend that money. And that is just not how my husband and I look at our marriage. We do things together out of respect. I'll run things by him out of respect. We have conversations where we listen to each other, but there is no point in the marriage where I've ever said, no, you can't do that.
You and I have struggled with this similarly, I think, because I think you and I are very independent people. We're very independent women, you and I.
Yeah. I said that about you, Bert.
So being in a committed relationship, yet keeping your independence and your individuality is a challenge.
It is.
And I think that those that navigate through that part and have a partner that understands how important that independence is for each other, if that's necessary for one or the other, those are the ones that make it. Ones that feel strangled, that don't feel like they can walk around with the freedom. Those are the ones I feel like they've got these boundaries around them that don't fit right. And that's where I feel like most marriages kind of go tank.
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely agree. It's like once you give up you marry each other because you love the other person as an individual, but then you marry and you become a couple and you lose the individual. And that's why I think it's so important to have your own life, friends, hobbies that you do. And my thing has always been like Chad and I, we are living our life in parallel with each other. So there are times where the roads cross and we do things together. And there are times where I just go hang out with my friends. I do what I want to do and he does what he wants to do.
And I think most people, as soon as you get married, you are the center of each other's universe, and everything has to be done together. And if it's not, then it doesn't feel healthy. And I think that's an unhealthy way to look at it.
I agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, back to your original question, Mo, I think unless for religious reasons or you really love the person and you want to show the world, whatever your personal preference, I don't think there is inherent value in marriage for men or women. I think it's the same on both sides, because unless a woman wants to get married and wants that status, well, then there's value in it for her.
Value.
But then the man entering into it of his own free will, like there has to be some value for him, and that's he wants the woman, like he doesn't want to let her go. But otherwise, as a baseline, like I agree with you, but for both sides.
So your question is, what's the difference between me just looking at my partner and saying, let's just do this for the long haul, baby, and actually going to the courthouse and signing a piece of paper?
Somewhat. I'm pretty much saying exactly what Cassie is saying, as well as there isn't value on either side. But for women, I think the value is most women want to be married. So that's the value. It's something that you want, and that some women, like, if I'm being honest, enjoy the social part of being married. Like, I'm married, I feel successful in this. Look what I've done. I know a lot of women who've gotten married just to get married. They don't even really want to marry the guy they married. They just want to be married.
Just need a warm body up there.
That's it, right? Like it looks a certain way, whereas I think most men's attitude towards it is like, I'm really getting married because you want to get married.
Gotcha.
So that kind of is where the value separates for me on both sides.
Look, I've never been married, so I can't really speak to the actual inherent values, but my parents are married. They have a great marriage. They're surrounded by couples who have had 30, 40-year-long marriages. And what I've heard from them is that there's really something to be said about standing up in front of everybody, even if it's just a courthouse wedding, and saying, we're going to be a team. I'm going to sign up for this team. I'm going to get the government involved. So there's financial consequences if I step outside of these lines, which might not be something you want to sign up for. But I think there's a permanence that comes with actually saying, okay, we're going to do this together. We're gonna become a team officially. It's like signing a contract.
Here's Heather. Hey, Heather, good morning. You're on The Bert Show. Thanks for joining the conversation. What's up?
Yes, good morning. I was just going to tell Mo that I think a lot of people miss the fact that, like, when you sign that piece of paper and say that you're getting married, that gives you a lot of say as far as, like, legal decisions and stuff like that. I would say that's more of the value in getting married, because if something happens to your partner, then if you don't have that piece of paper, they're not going to consider you when it comes to making a medical decision. They're going to go straight to the parents or someone else, and people can overrule you.
It doesn't seem like a major reason for you.
Nah.
I'm looking at your face. All right, I'll deal with that.
All right, just in case that happens. Nah.
Interesting conversation. We should probably continue this in bonus content or online. If you guys want to leave some comments on for us on Facebook, on Instagram, we'll read some of those tomorrow. You can always hit us up there.
The Bert Show.
Like what you just watched? Well, you can get way more of The Bert Show on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.